for immediate withdrawal from Vietnam. And of course, other things like jobs programs and some of the things that they're even talking about today. He was very much in favor of the civil rights movement and the anti-war movement. And Richard Nixon, who most people know something about, and his secret plan to end the war in Vietnam. So you see from the map here that the American people, in their wisdom, selected the secret plan, which was the carpet bombing. They dropped more bombs on Little Vietnam than had been dropped in World War II on all theaters. Destroyed everything. And in fact, Curtis LeMay, who was head of the Air Force, was advocating, since we were still losing, despite it all, that they should use nuclear weapons. And he argued in the Congress that we've destroyed every village, town, hamlet, city, the dams and dikes. We've done all of this damage. What is the what is the problem with going ahead and using our nuclear weapons on these motherfuckers? And there was at that time in the 60s, there was a bad taste in people's mouth, not only around the world, but even in the United States, about the use of nuclear weapons. And the horrors of Hiroshima had somewhat been known, some of the photos and so on and so forth. And there was a reluctance, and they never did use the nuclear weapons. They had offered the nuclear weapons to the French, going back to the Bien Ben Phu, when the French were defeated by the Vietnamese. That would be in the 50s. I can't remember exactly. And the French refused and pulled out of Vietnam. They refused the offer.
1954.
There was a certain prohibition against using nuclear weapons. But the point is,
The Battle of Bien Ben Phu was March 13th, 1954.
54. Yeah. And that, of course, the French pulled out and the U.S. moved right in. And they had made some peace settlements in Geneva and had agreed to hold elections, to have a temporary separation between the North and South. In the South, mostly Japanese collaborators and conservatives. And the North was a socialist country. And the idea was, after a 2-year, cooling off period, they would have general elections in a unified Vietnam. Eisenhower was frank. He said, we allow elections. Ho Chi Minh will get 80% of the vote. Then where will we be? And where will our sources of tin, tungsten, rubber, and so forth? We will be in a bad place. So they decided to have a democratic South Vietnam and a communist North Vietnam, and that's when Thieu and Key took over and so forth, military dictatorship. But are we talking about the election specifically?
Yeah, well, now you're going back in time. We were on the 72 election. No, we're just talking.
Yeah, well, as I said, it was a clear choice.
You were saying McGovern, Nixon was the biggest.
Yeah, and the sort of the irony of it, if you want to analyze the election, the peculiarity of it is that I think the polls that I saw at that time, and judging from the massive outpouring of anti-war support in every quarter, 70-some% were for immediate withdrawal.
Yeah.
Nixon said, "Well, we need to have a negotiated withdrawal," and he had a secret plan to do that. And the American people, in their wisdom, they said, "Well, that sounds pretty good to me," because they'd already tried to tar McGovern with association with Henry Wallace, as I mentioned, back in 48, who wanted to maintain good relations with the Soviet bloc. So he was obviously a communist sympathizer, and they since McGovern had supported him back in 48, by extension, he was also a communist. So the media broadcast that type of crap.
Wallace
And
got some electoral. Wallace got almost 10 million
no,
votes.
no.
68.
That's George C. Wallace. A horse of a different color.
Wallace's?
What?
They like to confuse us, don't they?
Well, Henry Wallace is what I was talking about, and I'm skipping around here a little bit. But George C. Wallace.
Yeah, okay, so here's a Henry Wallace.
Was a segregationist.
In 48.
And his objection was to the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act and the civil rights movement in general, equality and desegregation. So he was a Strom Thurmond, very similar policy to Strom Thurmond. Now you're going back to 48. So Henry Wallace was the Strom Thurmond of the 60s, or the, what was that? Where was that he got 9 million votes? What election was that? 64?
68.
68.
George Wallace.
Yeah. So you see a landslide if you go to the 64 election. You'll see the
Goldwater. Johnson and Goldwater. You don't
another
really
landslide. So Galloway, we started this off because Galloway kind of misspoke and said that this was the most lopsided election in American history. Far from it, but we've got 2 or 3 here that are more lopsided.
Yeah. This is crazy.
Goldwater was considered an extremist on the right, very popular with John Birch, and as you see, the Southern, formerly Dixiecrats, but this is where they flipped over to the Republican side. They used to be a solid Democrat.
Oh, really? Like the election before? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The map just like totally flipped from. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Henry Byrd got Mississippi and Alabama, but Democrat.
Yeah, well, Byrd was a Dixiecrat.
Okay.
He
what does
remained
that mean?
the Democrat Party, but he was a segregationist.
Okay.
So, and then the Republicans were well, let's see, what year are we in 1960? Oh, well, this is
sorry, no, this is
Kennedy Nixon.
Kennedy Nixon. Yeah, I went back a year.
Can you click on Illinois there and see how close that was?
Let's see.
Can't click on it.
Tried clicking.
No, it doesn't work. Well, it was very close, and like I say,
Another.
Mayor Daley, is accused of flipping the election in Cook County, Chicago City. They had the means to do that, apparently. I can't verify that, but that's widely believed.
Hey. My cats are having a row. Let's see here. Turnout. We have, well, oh, that's governor. Lieutenant governor.
Illinois, 1960 popular vote.
Yeah, I'm getting to it. Attorney general. They're giving it all to me. Okay.
Well, let's see, from the electoral count, Illinois didn't exactly flip the election. I was wrong about that. But it was very close in a few other states.
Yeah, I mean, it was
I would not have flipped the election.
not at all. It was only
That's
20.
what they, no, I was mistaken about that.
But so the
27
oh no. Go ahead.
No, it's just that I was misinformed about that. It's a commonplace that Daley flipped the election for Kennedy, but apparently that's not quite true.
I mean,
He
it
still
was
would've-
right. The popular vote was 2,377,000 for Kennedy, 2,368,000 for Nixon.
Oh, well, that is
So-
a razor thin, yeah.
Yeah. 9,000 there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it wouldn't have done anything, those 27 electoral votes.
Yeah, well, a couple other states were very close. I know, maybe Texas. Can you dial up Texas?
Yep. 19.
I think some of those other states were close too.
Yeah, Texas, we got 1,167,000 for Kennedy and 1,121,000
Oh, yeah,
Nixon. So there's 40,000
yeah.
difference there.
What about, say, North Carolina? Missouri was also very close, as I recall. And West Virginia, I think.
That's pretty good memory, Father. We're talking
Well, I'm kind of guessing.
64 years ago.
North Carolina being a border state, I just think it's very close.
Well, North Carolina, it's interesting looking at the map here. It so 713,000 for Kennedy, 655,000 for Nixon. It's basically split east and west. Nixon got the west and Nick Kennedy got the east there.
Check Missouri, I think that was extremely close.
That's what it says. And the nation's third closest race, Missouri was one. Okay, we got Nixon, 972,000. I mean, Kennedy, and Nixon was 962,000.
Wow,
So 10,000 difference.
10,000 votes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hell, the bosses in St. Louis and Kansas City can flip that. I campaigned in Missouri, in Kansas City for McGovern.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't realize you were all over the country with that.
Yeah, and for the general, I was back in Ohio, but most of the time. But
So now we're back to 72.
primaries, I was all around.
Johnson Goldwater. 68. We talked about 68. Okay, so McGovern, yeah, Nixon. Bloodbath. I mean, literally.
That's embarrassing.
What's next?
Send that one to Galloway. He doesn't know what a landslide is.
Yeah, well, he might not know American politics that far back, is what I think.
Well,
being British and all.
Yeah, he does know McGovern,
but now in 76 we got a much more evenly divided.
So 76, Ford and Carter, yeah.
I'm surprised that Kentucky's Democrat here and
blue,
the South.
and Ohio is blue.
Yeah, well, Ohio was blue in recent memory. I remember when I was in high school and such. It's just recently turned red.
Well, they look at the 1980. That was Reagan. That's another landslide.
Oh my gosh.
Reagan and Mondale, I guess.
No kidding.
Yeah, look at that.
I've been telling you that I think all the elections are just predetermined because they seem so close to the elections in my memory.
No, look,
I never, something like this, I never would have thought that was possible.
Well, you have to run a shit ass, okay? You need a shit ass. A shit ass.
A shit ass?
Reagan was a shit ass.
And then he went?
A fake actor, very smooth. It was smoother than Trump. Very smooth. He's a fucking actor.
Yeah.
And he immediately staffed all his cabinet with big corporate monopolists and doubled the defense budget. He was running against Jimmy Carter, who had promised to slash the defense budget because we didn't need to spend, I think at that time, $600 billion or whatever it was. Said we're going to cut it in half. Reagan doubled it. So we're up over, whatever it was. He doubled it in 4 years and initiated the Star Wars and everything else. But
look at the popular vote, though. I mean, only 8 million votes.
Carter was the incumbent. And Carter,
yeah,
they savaged him in the media. You can manipulate the American people. If you can't manipulate the American people, you need to find another job, If you're in the media or a political consultant or any position like that, and there's tens and tens of thousands of them.
So they
if you can't manipulate the American people, you're not fit to herd goats,
Well, now goats are kind of hard.
Well, yeah, they'd be completely lost there. The humans are a lot easier
to herd.
Yeah, well, because you can't talk to them. You can't brainwash them.
Yeah, goats are a little more
brainwash the people.
Yeah.
Tell them any goddamn thing. They said, okay.
So why did they vilify him?
Do you remember our embassy in Tehran?
Yes, of
was
course.
taken over by the militants.
Okay, so that
You
was
know,
during Carter?
and held hostage. Well, that's all blamed on Carter.
Okay.
You know, if I was president, and they never would have tried some shit like that. This is the same line that Trump has. They never would have invaded Ukraine if they know what's good for them.
So
So
what happened?
it's
So
bravado.
what happened during this Iranian
Well, they held the hostages, and incidentally,
who held them?
have you ever heard of the Iran Contra deal?
Yes.
So Reagan's people went over and talked real nice to the Ayatollah and his people that if you will not release the hostages until after the election, we have anti-aircraft weaponry to give to you. We have other weaponry to give to you. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And, or I should say, sell to you. They sold it, and the proceeds then were kicked back. Poindexter and all those people were kicked back to support the Contras in Nicaragua off budget, you see, because CIA only has so much budget, and they couldn't really get it passed in the Congress. So they sold the weapons to Iran, which they shortly used to in their war with Iraq, and, on which we were supporting both sides with intelligence and arms, and kicked back the proceeds from this sale of weaponry, the most advanced that we could offer, kicked back the proceeds to support the Contras in Nicaragua. So it's called the Iran-Contra scandal, which people have heard that, like the Watergate scandal. But they don't really know what it's about.
Definitely something you've heard, right?
In fact, they don't know anything about the Watergate scandal. They just know it was a scandal.
Someone broke in and got some paperwork, right?
What's that? Oh,
someone broke in and
it was a whole lot of nothing. Look, it was a setup because they wanted to dump Nixon at that point. So we're talking 72, or no. When was that scandal? Well, no, it would have been before the Carter. So 75, 76.
It began in 72, ultimately led to Nixon's resignation in 74.
74.
Yeah, members of the Nixon re-election campaign broke into the implanted listening devices in the Democratic
in
in 1972, the Watergate office.
Yeah.
In Washington, D.C.
So it was a whole lot of nothing. Now I remember, yeah, they ran Nixon out of town 2 years before his term ended, and they put in Spiro Agnew, who was a far-right politician out of New Jersey. So yeah, now I remember. I was thinking they used that in an election campaign. No, they impeached the motherfucker. They wanted to get rid of him. Why? Has to do with the Federal Reserve, Nixon's "Make America Great" and his what is it, the American system that he wanted to.
He had "Make America Great" too.
Well, he had some, the idea was he was more of a nationalist than these globalists.
And then we got
So
Carter.
some of his preferences cut strongly against. They brought in Ford in the next election. Ford brought in all the neocons, what we call today the neocons. Rumsfeld, Pearl, all of them.
76.
So there were differences regarding foreign policy. Yeah, Nixon destroyed Vietnam, but he was open to negotiation with the Soviet Union. He had relations with Khrushchev and so forth, and they signed some nuclear deals or restraints in Europe and so on. I don't know all of the issues, but Nixon was too American. He wasn't a globalist the way they wanted. So they got rid of him, they shit canned him. There was nothing about this. Okay, so they broke in. So that's a little hanky panky. Huh? That's some hanky panky. Hell, I broke
Why
in.
did they break in?
Me and Bill Mann broke in.
I don't want to hear about this.
You will when you hear the story. You don't want to hear it?
No, I'm just kidding. Just you and Bill Mann.
How well do you know Bill? How well do you know Bill? I can't remember.
I don't think I remember him at all, unfortunately. But we're having a reunion, right? Maybe he'll be there.
Yeah, we'll definitely need to invite him. I don't hear from him much anymore, but Rick does. So we were down at Ohio University, and
that's where all the hanky panky happens.
Well, we did some hanky panky.
Yeah.
The thing was that Bill, who got his master's degree at OSU, and the day before his final exam, where you've got 3 or 4 professors, a committee, his master's committee, I guess they call it. He'd already done his thesis, but you have to pass this oral exam. And he's studying American history. Well, nobody knows history. People know this and that and this item and that item. Nobody knows the whole scope. So he's very worried. He said, I don't have any idea what in the fuck they're going to ask me about, I don't know, Strom Thurmond or something or other. I have no idea. The Wild Wild West, it could be, anything.
Yeah.
So he says, I happen to have a strong feeling that in the professor's office, he has those questions ready to go.
See, this is exactly like the Watergate scandal.
What we're going to do is we're going to climb up this drain pipe late at night, 2 o'clock in the morning. We're going to climb up this drain pipe here, and we're going to go in the second floor. And hopefully there won't be any alarms going off. We'll try to check the windows to make sure there's no, alarm system. Everything went according to plan. Unbelievable. We got up there, we got in the office, and he's rifling through the guy's file cabinets and drawers and checking his desk. I think he found what he thought were the questions. So we climbed back down the goddamn drain pipe and went about our business. And anyway, he passed the exam. So it probably was a little more of a formality than they thought, but he was very worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, that could have been really bad.
Yeah, we might have gotten in trouble, but I was reckless.
got expelled and not gotten a degree at all than gotten a slightly bad grade. I don't know.
Yeah, and I would have gotten in trouble too, and I didn't really have a stake in the thing. But you know, he needed somebody to go with and
Yeah, you're
encourage
the
him.
guy, of course.
Hmm?
You're not going to leave him hanging. Okay, so that's like the Watergate scandal right there. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I don't know all of the details, but it wasn't an earth-shattering thing. And you know, what, they got some info? I don't know. You got more information than I do if you're looking at Wikipedia.
Well, I just got the Wikipedia.
You can read all about it.
Goodness.
But I'm just saying they made a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah, I got you, because they
To
wanted
take down.
And then next we have Ford and Carter. And Ford, you're saying, brought in the neocons. But he lost.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Right.
Million.
Interesting.
Look at that. Only 200, 300,000 votes in the popular vote difference.
Yeah, that was a close one.
That was a close one.
Well, Ford was about as inspiring as Kamala Harris.
Okay.
Repeat.
Yeah.
Rinse and repeat. What was his line?
Americans want. We have trains.
He had 2 or 3 slogans he just kept recycling. He was as stiff as a board. He really was not an inspiring candidate. Carter, well, obviously more liberal on some things, but a Dixiecrat in other ways. And he famously...
Wait, what does a Dixiecrat mean? Because I haven't heard about that term.
Well, the Democrats, up through this period, were always in the Democrat Party. Going back, you know, to slavery, the Democrats were pro-slavery. And, of course, they were, you know, so-called populists. But no, the Democrats were solid. If you go back and go back and go back, you'll see it's all blue. But so Carter from Georgia had some, you know, sort of inkling about some kind of Democrat policies, but he also played the race card. He talked about guaranteeing the ethnic purity. Ethnic purity was his line that he gave in a couple of speeches, which was a signal. Of course, by this time, the Civil Rights Act had passed and everything, and much of the country was, you know, comfortable with civil rights. But he played that card anyway in '76 and got a narrow victory. What are we looking at here? 18.
I'm just seeing how far back this goes.
Yeah, solid. You know, Lincoln was a Republican, right?
Why are these states blank?
Well, they weren't even incorporated as states in that time.
For Christ's sake.
You're looking, well,
we're going back too far.
Western expansion. Wait a minute, 1872. When was Texas.
Grant versus Various.
Oh, for Christ's sake. Various, yeah. He was good. When was the Mexican War where they took over all that territory?
No, shoot.
1848.
There we go. 1848. Look, we're only over here, guys.
There you go.
And we're purple. We're not even red. We're the Whig. Oh, because we're the Whigs.
What a stupid name for a party. The Whigs.
Is
I'm
that
a little confused. Texas was independent at one time from 1938
there?
was the Lone Star State.
There, look, it's not there anymore.
Yeah. So they were independent at that time.
Dang,
More or less.
let's go to the beginning. 1989 or 1789, Washington with a landslide.
Who did he run against?
John Adams
Pinckney.
and others.
Pinckney's. Oh, I thought I saw Pinckney. There were several Pinckneys.
It says others. John Adams was a Federalist. George Washington.
Oh. Holy shit.
George Washington again. John Adams, George Clinton, and others. Pretty good. Did a good
Well, keep
job.
clicking.
Then we got Jefferson coming in here. This is a close election. Jefferson, Adams.
John Adams again, or the other Adams? John Adams.
There's Pinckney.
The Democrat Republican.
Look at
There
that.
you go.
Look at the electoral votes. It's so cool. I mean, there's like so many different candidates. They're all
Holy shit. There's Pinckney. So
it's
they,
like an actual democracy here.
well, wait a minute. There's two Federalist candidates and two Democrat Republican. They elected the vice president separately. I know that. But this is a little confusing.
Yeah.
Is there any explanation there? The main Federalist candidate and the main
electors
the others are running for vice president, I think.
Interesting. It says electors had 2 votes each for president. And most voted for both candidates in their party.
So they can split their vote, or
Yeah.
make much sense.
Interesting.
Issues of the day: the Whiskey Rebellion, Jay's Treaty, Jay's Treaty.
No idea.
The end of the French and Indian War, I guess. I don't know.
A controversial agreement between the United States and Great Britain signed in 1794 to resolve disputes that had remained since the American Revolution.
I see.
In
But
regard,
we didn't have Trump there to do the negotiating.
yeah,
So we got taken advantage.
dude, Britain reamed us.
Huh.
All right, well, let's go on here. Adams, Jefferson again. Look how close. Pinckney. Man, look at our small country. If only we could expand westward.
That's going to happen shortly.
Now Jefferson, he wiped the floor. Ohio becomes a state during this election. Yeah, we're getting there. I don't know, West Virginia. Little
Still
holdout.
not a state. That's weird.
Little
Surrounded
holdout
by
there.
states.
What?
They're surrounded by states and they're not a state. That's kind of weird. Neither, well, anyway.
Yeah, the Native Americans are probably holding out there. You know, West Virginia is pretty mountainous and difficult terrain, you know.
Yeah.
They probably couldn't quite get them contained. Madison and Clinton. Monroe versus King.
The Monroe Doctrine that declared this hemisphere to be ours.
Oh, now we got quite a few states added.
Still don't have West Virginia. That's weird.
And of course, Florida. I mean, Florida. I know the resistance in Florida was pretty
Yeah, the Seminoles.
substantial. The Seminole, yeah.
Well, wait a minute. When was the Spanish-American War? That was
That was
in
later, 1890s.
yeah. So
Probably totally wrong, but
I think Spain still had a presence in
yeah,
in Florida,
True,
in St. Augustine.
1898. Yeah, you're right. But
Yeah.
still, they were formidable opponents there.
So we got Puerto Rico too, so we can kick them around now today.
Yeah, our floating pile of trash.
There you go. I'm on a landlocked pile of trash here.
Look at.
Anyway. No,
Dude,
I shouldn't say that.
I'm on the biggest pile of trash of all. The U.S.
What's that?
The United States of America. All right.
Well, come back here sometime. Let me show you around. You
Look
won't
at,
believe your eyes.
All these candidates are Democrat, Republican.
They don't know which side they're on.
I know.
We're confused.
I know.
Look at this crap.
Our map looks gay.
You dumbasses. What kind of a party is that? When you
LBGT.
It's like a primary. It's like a primary, and there's no opposition.
And West Virginia is still holding out, man.
Well, we got to look into that sometime. I don't know how that happened. I mean, the westward expansion, and they just missed West Virginia. That's there must be some interesting history there. Like you say, it could be Indian resistance or miners' resistance. Or
we changed colors. Now we're Michigan colors. Democrat and National Republican. Andrew Jackson and Quincy Adams.
When you talk about the American system, that's Jackson.
What do you mean?
Well, strong protectionism. Let's see. They had a big issue about the establishing a national bank, and I'm pretty rusty when you get back there. I have degrees in American history, but I just wasn't too interested in the earlier period. I'm like 20th century guy,
Mm-hmm. I feel ya. It's pretty back there. But yeah, he had a decisive win here, so. And another win in 1832 against Clay. Now, I've heard of Clay, Henry Clay.
Yeah, he tried to arbitrate before the Civil War. I know that much. He's from what state's he from? Doesn't say.
Isn't he from Kentucky?
I'm thinking he was, and he won Kentucky. So he's in a border state, and he was trying to, have reasonable compromise about slavery and, the new states, whether they would be free or slave was the big issue. And of course, Texas is still out of the picture.
Yeah, so Henry Clay was an American lawyer and statesman who represented Kentucky in both the Senate and House. He was the 7th House Speaker as well as the 9th Secretary of State. He unsuccessfully ran in 1824, 1832, and 1844. He helped found the National Republican Party and the Whig Party.
Whig Party.
For his role in diffusing sectional crises, he earned the appellation of the Great Compromiser.
There you go.
And was part of the Great Triumvirate of Congressmen, alongside fellow Whig Daniel Webster and Democrat John C. Calhoun.
Yeah, never should have been a civil war. You know, England had already eliminated slavery in 1777, before the U.S. so-called revolution. You need to check, when you have a chance, Gerald Horne, Horne. He's a member of the American Communist Party, an outstanding historian. He's down at University of Texas still. And the Counterrevolution of 1776, which, this would make Rick's hair stand on end. I've recommended it to him, but he hasn't watched it, I'm sure. He likes the heroes, and the George Washingtons and all that crap. But it was a counter-revolution because the Sullivan, I think it was called the Sullivan decision in Britain, had ruled against slavery. It had already been eliminated in Britain, but then you had this Southern slave owners were over in Britain for business or whatever, and one of their slaves escaped. And this slaver, I guess it's Sullivan, I think it is, he demanded that, that the state track him down and return him his property. And the judge ruled a very, very decisive case. No, we don't believe you have any right to slavery. We've already abolished the slave trade that we were a part of, but we have renounced, and we're serious about it. This is what lit off the American Revolution. It wasn't taxes on tea. Okay.
Right.
Nobody likes taxes. Okay.
That damn tea tax, man.
The ruling class, the aristocracy in the states wanted to be the boss of their own country, just like, self-determination type of thing. But more specifically, it was a slave issue because the abolitionists were getting started in the states, but they were very strong. Most of their main leader, trying to think of, but they had a very strong abolitionist movement, and they were demanding that since slavery had been abolished in Britain, that it be extended to all of the colonies. Australia, United States, New Zealand, etc. Rhodesia, I think, was even a colony at that time. And so on, they had colonies all around the world that slavery should be abolished. And Wilberforce was gaining a great deal of traction because in Britain, they didn't have any slaves anymore. And 90% of people said it was an abomination. So why do we tolerate it in our colonies? So this was the issue. This is why they took to arms in the United States. Sure, they passed a high-sounding constitution and all that palabra, but that wasn't the issue. Yeah, they're against royalty. Okay, so they wanted a quote-unquote republic. There was various factors, but the elites, the Washingtons and Jeffersons and Adams and I don't know who all were slave owners, major slave owners, and No, the winds were blowing against them, so this is the main motivation. Gerald Horne can give you chapter and verse on that.
Yeah, I just looked him up and a YouTube video came up. Trump 2.0, Gerald Horne on the future of white supremacy, imperialism, and the rise of third worldism.
Third worldism. Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know about white supremacy. That's just taking it a little too far there.
Yeah, well, he did want to ban Muslims but the rise of third worldism. I'm not sure where he's going with that. I might check that.
You'll have to check that.
But I recommend
Um,
Counterrevolution of 1776 because
yeah,
this turns the table on the narrative. You know what I mean?
yeah. But I wouldn't say, Trump, just from that video, that he's a white supremacist. I know the liberals really like to paint him that way. But to me, it just seems like he doesn't want, well, what he says, illegal immigration. He's fine with legal immigration. His wife's an immigrant. His vice president's wife is Indian.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Anyway, so I just think it's like taking it too far, when he's a Nazi, he's a white supremacist. It's like, it's just taking it so far that it's like ridiculous. Just like when they call Kamala a communist or the Democrats communist. It just makes it ridiculous.
No, that's fair. I mean, this idea is
other things you can criticize about them without having to go to these extremes.
Yeah, but Trump, on the other side of it, you make a fair point. I mean, I don't call him names like that. But when he says that these immigrants are roasting household pets, barbecue, that type of thing, you call it whatever you want, but it's not, it's playing to racism.
No, but I know, but like, you ever see these geese? I mean,
The what?
if you go to a park, there's these big fat geese just walking around. I could definitely see an immigrant grabbing up that that goose and having it for dinner, because it's like us as Americans were like, oh, we're not gonna eat a goose, but they're big fat, like there's hundreds of them.
That's not household pets. That's not household pets.
No,
There's
for
a
sure.
difference.
And I don't think it is household pet. No, I mean, it was taking it too far. He was exaggerating.
Well, it was completely debunked.
Exaggerate, but I could see the geese. I can see people getting those geese out of the park, and other people Americans being, kind of upset with that because they're not used to it.
Well, yeah, but you see, regardless of the facts, to make some statements like that, or that there are so many rapists and high crime, and let's not fool ourselves. America's got racism in their DNA. Can play with that.
But interesting.
China.
Yeah,
he says China.
Interesting local story here. Down when we had the farm, one of our neighbors hired a Cuban American, or he was Cuban. He was born in Cuba, but he was had been released during, when they were releasing, when Cuba was releasing their prisoners.
America boat left.
Yeah, I don't know. And he came over like in the 90s or in maybe the 80s. He was like a really trustworthy. They had him working for him for a long time. He was really trustworthy. They loved him, but then he kind of got into some drugs, and I don't know what happened, and he ended up robbing them blind. Anyway,
Well,
so you get
see,
stories like that. I mean, you know,
that's,
yeah,
that's anecdotal.
it's
That's
anecdotal, but
well, but the only reason to bring and the at Springfield, Ohio non-incident is anecdotal, but it's told for a reason. Believe me.
yeah, well, I'm
Not
just saying,
to inform people or whatever.
well, just the fact that you don't know who's in your country and what, you know what. I mean, I'm sure the Mexican government would like to know you're there causing havoc. You know, they have no idea because you're not registered down there.
Well, no, I'm not registered, and they're not bothering me. But
I'm just
that
kidding.
Mariel boat lift, I want to say was early 80s. Cuban,
something like
I think Mariel, for some reason they call it the Mariel, I think it is. But the boat, the what year was it? Early 80s?
Let's see here. 1980.
Okay, so the thing was, Reagan and all those people were constantly, all the press and everybody, they've got hundreds of thousands of political prisoners in Cuba. Of course, the Florida people and, you know, the Gusanos and everybody hollering at the top of their lungs that there's all this political repression and political prisoners in Cuba. So finally, Fidel had enough. Said, well, let's see. We do have, actually, yes, about 100,000 people in prison here. And you're calling them political prisoners. So we're going to send them over. Beautiful. Beautiful. Then they start complaining about it immediately.
Yeah.
But they all got their citizenship, I think, pretty quick because they were, you know, political refugees.
Yeah. No, then they're actual criminals, right?
Yeah, sure. There were very few,
So bad.
some political prisoners,
Yeah.
you know, malcontents, helping out the assassination plots and what have you. But
yeah, I'm not really sure about Juan, the guy that was around here. I think he wasn't political or anything. He was just a common criminal. Anyway, are we going back to this map or?
well, let's work our way up. I want to see where Texas and Florida come into the picture and West Virginia.
36, yeah, we still got West Virginia. We still got our LGBTQ map. I don't know what's going on.
At this point, Texas is still part of Mexico. 1936,
Yeah.
1836.
Well,
I think
California, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, right?
do you know that the Mexican or the Texas independence movement, Sam Austin and Sam Houston, I mean, and those guys, the whole issue again was slavery. Juarez and the Mexican government had made slavery illegal in the early 1830s. And they were enforcing it or attempting to enforce it, but they couldn't enforce it in Texas. It was too far in the provinces.
Yeah.
And these guys, Sam Austin and Houston and all those guys were heavy duty slave owners. this is before the Civil War, of course. But anyway, I just thought I would remark that because they're so proud of their Lone Star State, and the origins of it are pro-slavery independence movement.
Yeah. Well, they might be proud of that too. So,
Yeah.
here we go. We got.
Well, that's a mix. Let me see that picture. Evidently, slavery was not a big issue. Just looking at the Deep South and so on, it's very mixed. It's not a solid Democrat majority. Harrison.
Still 1840. So
Harrison was an Indian fighter, as was Jackson. That was their claim to fame. Killed a bunch of Indians.
Yeah. Who are you saying?
Well, I was going back to Jackson.
Oh, okay, before.
And Jackson was. What year are we in now?
We're in 1840.
Oh, so Jackson was in the 30s, I believe. I'm confused.
Yeah, 1832.
Yeah, but before that, he was the Indian killer par excellence.
It says the issues of the day in 1840 are the Panic of 1837.
Oh.
Do we know?
Yeah,
Do we know what that was?
No, but they've had periodical about every 10 years or so. They have some kind of economic. It's capitalism,
Yeah, a financial crisis in the United States that began a major depression, which lasted into the mid-1840s. Profits, prices, and wages dropped. Westward expansion was stalled. Unemployment rose, and pessimism abounded.
Oh my goodness. Pessimism abounded.
Yeah. For people.
So we voted for Harrison. Harrison's going to save the day.
It led to high unemployment, surprisingly. Multiple factors led to this event. Prior to this financial crisis, unregulated banks gave too many loans and printed excessive amounts of their own money. Huh.
Yeah.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Harrison, who knows, but he never made it. He died. Oh. Well, he died in 1841. So he died just a few months after he took office. And then John Tyler took over.
Their slogan was Tippecanoe and Tyler too. Tippecanoe was a major battle where they devastated the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyler was his vice president. But like I say, my knowledge in this period is very sketchy.
Yeah. Oh, Polk. I've heard of him. And Clay. Okay, I think this is the election.
Prior to the Mexican War.
Yeah, with the annexation of Texas and stuff. This is all kind of the same time. West Virginia, still independent. Good for them.
I think Polk might have got Alaska too, didn't he? Let's look at the next.
No, Alaska's not even on our radar yet.
Well, you might be right. It might have been quite a bit later.
I mean,
look at the next election.
Okay, so Polk won. Now we got a bunch. We got Texas. We got Wisconsin. Now we got some different folks. So Florida, Iowa, Texas, and Wisconsin become states during this election cycle.
Well, what about West Virginia, for God's sakes?
And then issues of the day are slavery and war with Mexico. You know,
Yeah.
West Virginia, it's still kind of its own place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, that's yeah, they have a distinctive culture, so they say. You know, they elected Rockefeller. That was always kind of strange. David, or not Nelson Rockefeller, but his brother became governor of West Virginia. That's kind of strange, but they owned all the mines.
Yeah.
And so they had influence that way. Yeah, I suppose people thought that, you know, if they elected Rockefeller, they would bring in more investment and so on.
Yeah, well, sure, but I'm sure they also just had all the good advertising and everything. You know, probably
Yeah, that too. They
they're
control
probably
all the
handing out free pens and
Sure.
you know,
Yeah.
get a free pen, I'll get your vote. Did they even have pens back then? Just kidding. You know, the ink, probably like the ink jars.
Who was that Rockefeller's name? J. Rockefeller. J. Rockefeller, who was what they call progressive Republican. We did have those in the 60s and 70s, 80s. But
yeah,
well,
he was a
a
retired American politician who served as the senator from West Virginia. 1985 to 2015. So he's just barely been out. He's in there 30 years.
Shit, I didn't know that. Yeah, the Senate. Yeah, who gives a shit about the governorship? No, they want to get a vote in the Senate, of course. Yeah, no, I had no idea. He retired when?
2015.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he was first the governor of West Virginia from 77 to 85, and then he became the senator.
To 2017, I haven't heard a damn word about him for 15 or 20 years.
Yeah, well, that was almost 10 years ago, but yeah.
All right, let's move on here. I want to see the Western expansion, for God's sake.
Right. For Christ's sake, let's get this ball rolling.
West Virginia.
We should have taken
I'm
over
feeling
this
sorry for you.
a long time ago. Okay.
I don't think that West Virginia is getting enough respect. They don't even want to invite him into the union, you know?
Right? They're just getting left out in the cold. So we got California.
Wait a minute.
I thought California was part of the whole deal there, but
I did too. That's confusing.
what year is this? 1852.
So yeah, the war was in 48, I believe. And so, yeah, I thought I know what it is. We took all that territory, but we hadn't had a chance to establish statehood
Okay.
in each part.
Right. Give them a vote and everything.
They were still negotiating borders and everything like that.
And then we have the Free Soil Party. It's interesting.
Yeah. They got a big zero.
I wonder if he just ran on I'll give you some free land.
Populous. Well, they did have free land out in some parts of the West.
Oh yeah, I think
I guess they wanted to extend that more and make it.
Well,
freer.
exactly what they're doing, what Israel's doing in the West Bank. You know, they try to get their people to go out and settle land that's not theirs.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of holding the line for them, you know?
Yeah, give them protection, give them free land, give them tax breaks and everything. Tennessee and Kentucky are outliers here.
Yeah, they're
They
still
are,
big.
they are Whigs. You know, I could have told
But look at this
a
popular vote.
long time ago, the Whig, just rename your party. Well, it took them a while to get because Whigs are, remind people of the British aristocracy, for Christ's sake. Who in the fuck? And nobody, you don't think they wore wigs in the Congress of the United States? Wigs. You got to be stupid to put a label like that on your party.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was when I was watching the South African case against Israel. It was genocide.
It may look stupid.
Yeah,
It's stupid as hell.
it does look a little antiquated. Probably do away with that, folks.
Well, one royal,
Like even the
lord,
ladies.
yeah, they had one lord Fumblebutt back in the days, and he happened to be bald, huh? So everybody has to wear wigs so that he's not subjected to ridicule.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
We'll have to look into that. We'll have to bring you guys the true story behind that, but that's all we got for now. There was a bald dude.
What do you mean, you guys? Who's watching this?
I don't know.
If
Okay.
people are watching, I got to clean up my language.
Now we got the Republicans for the first time.
Wow,
And
that's
we
a north-south divide there.
The familiar colors. Yeah, it's completely flipped now, huh?
No, the South and Texas, these are slave states.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
the Democrats were the party of slavery that defended slavery.
Yeah.
Well, it's that simple. The blacks were not voting.
Why do black people vote for Democrats?
Things changed in the Roosevelt administration. That's later.
Yeah, I know, but how could you forget?
Well, you forget that because the parties flipped. And people like Strom Thurmond joined the Republican Party, and Roosevelt took I don't know, he had a black cabinet, not the official cabinet, but an unofficial black cabinet of a lot of they were more pro integration than the Republicans, starting in the 30s. And why the realignment happened, I'm not sure. Breckenridge. I've heard of Breckenridge.
Now we got Oregon before we have the rest of the Mexican territories.
Yeah, well, they needed to form a state and form a government. And
look at that, West Virginia.
What? They're still not.
What are we at? 1860. Wow.
Well,
Lincoln. Okay, so now we have Abraham Lincoln. I know him.
Just a big hole in the middle of our map. Poor people. Where's their identity going to be? We're the nothing burgers. John Bell. So we have a genuine multi-party panorama here.
It says Lincoln.
Constitutional Union, and Democrat again. Well, hell, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Lincoln received only about 40% of the popular vote in a divided nation on the brink of civil war. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Constitutional Union, right here in the middle.
The border states. So
Mhm.
that's the John J. or who is it? John J. or who's the guy we were talking about from Kentucky?
Clay,
Clay.
Henry Clay.
These border states are in a a tight situation.
All right. 64. McClellan and Lincoln. Oh, West Virginia. On the scene.
I don't see it.
It's red.
I don't see it. I'm still on 1860 on my map.
Okay. Let's give it a.
Well, where's 1864?
Well, I got it up here. It just must not be loading. All the South is like dark gray. Like they couldn't vote, I guess.
Wait a minute. I think I'm seeing. Yeah, scroll up a little bit there.
Wait, let me read this real quick. Kansas, Nevada, West Virginia become states. Due to succession,
Wow.
southern states of Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, and Virginia don't participate. Vice presidential succession, Lincoln died from an assassin's bullet on April 15th, 1865, replaced by Andrew Johnson. Issues of the day, the Civil War.
So this is what they call Reconstruction, and they weren't allowed to participate
right
in the South. Oh, well, and so
Kentucky's Democrat. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Only one.
Well, they had basically supported the Union, but they had half of the country was supporting the South, I believe. Anyway, what is that? New Jersey and
Delaware,
and New Jersey voted Democrat. But yeah, this is what's called a landslide. I don't know what Georgia's about.
There's been so many.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to send him this video.
Now, don't embarrass him. He's flying high right now. He doesn't want to hear any naysaying.
I mean, look at this land. I mean, they're all like 80 to 214.
Well, here now, Texas and Virginia are not allowed to vote. They must have been recalcitrant. They must have been recalcitrant about freeing their slaves.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
I think Texas was.
Don't participate. Issues of the day, Reconstruction and impeachment.
Impeachment. They're trying to impeach Johnson for some reason. For some reason, I guess, I don't know what it was, but Useless S. Grant. Oh, it's Ulysses. I misspoke.
Arkansas and Louisiana aren't allowed to vote now.
God.
We got look at how many Democrats. 5 Democrats. Hendricks, Brown, Jenkins, Davis, Greeley. Oh, I don't know if they got. Who knows how many votes they have.
Horace Greeley.
Horace Greeley got 2,800,000 votes, and he got 0 electoral.
Yeah, that's that electoral college deal. Horace Greeley was.
And then these guys got
popular.
star votes, and then they got some electoral. Just kidding. I don't know why they have stars there.
I guess they lost the votes. Some clerk messed up and lost them or something. I don't know.
Wait, it
They
says
got electoral votes and they don't have popular votes. That's weird.
because the Democratic nominee Horace Greeley died after the election, but before the vote of electors, most of whom chose other Democrats.
Oh.
The map displays all those electoral votes as if won by a single Democrat. Okay,
Oh, yeah. So the electors. The electors. What?
Yeah, so I was just thinking, yeah, this is the popular vote for all of them.
Yeah, well, that explains it. I didn't know Greeley died, and then
they just
the electors were free to. So basically, Greeley must have gotten 21 electoral votes or something.
Well, he didn't get any because nobody voted for him because he already died.
Greeley?
Yeah.
Greeley?
He died.
There were 2,834,000 voted for Greeley.
I think that's
and
the
he
total
won.
of all the Democrats.
He won. No, you missed the point. Go back up to the map. You see there that Greeley won the state of Texas, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Missouri, and Maryland. Okay, but he died between the election and the selection of the electors.
Okay.
The electoral college. So those he actually won 50 or 60 electoral votes.
I got you. And then they just split them between.
Well, yeah, because the electors did not want to vote for Greeley after he's dead. So they were free to select other candidates. And actually, they may have even selected Grant. I doubt that. No, they selected the other Democrat.
Yeah, why even vote? I mean, I guess you have to because you're never going to get.
You're supposed to cast a ballot. I mean, you don't always vote for a winner.
Issues of the day: corruption in the federal government.
Oh, no kidding.
Oh, country, you'll be dealing with that for a while.
1872. Yeah, well, what are you going to do about it? Capitalism is corruption. The hell, it's a pretty fine distinction there.
This was a close one. Tilden and Hayes.
I guess so.
Look at the popular vote.
Damn.
We got Colorado.
To send several of these to George.
One of the most controversial elections ever.
The Electoral Commission awarded to Hayes. What was the final tally? Well, Hayes lost the popular vote. And he lost the electoral vote by one fucking vote.
No, Hayes won.
Well, yeah, that's what I meant.
He was up by one, but then he lost the popular vote.
So there was probably some hanky-panky in the Electoral College.
Yeah. I don't think I know either of them.
So probably Hayes was the guy who was going to get rid of corruption. Then he had his people bribe several of the electors.
Yeah. Well, we got corruption here. We're very worried about it. And then we have another financial crisis of 1873.
Yeah. I seem to remember there was one in 78, just a few years later.
There's
a deep one.
There's one every 5 years. Sorry to tell you.
Well, it usually goes on a 10 or 12-year cycle, but I believe 1878 was a huge one. Check the next map here.
It says that this is a panic started in Europe. The stock market crash led investors to sell their American railroad bonds. This left railroad companies with more bonds than buyers and unable to borrow money. And then the collapse of J. Cook and Company, a major New York bank that had invested heavily in railroad, was a contributing factor. At least 100 banks failed across the country. 89 of the country's 364 railroads went bankrupt. 18,000 businesses failed within 2 years. Unemployment rose by 14%. It lasted from the 73 to 78. In the United States, known as the Great Depression until the 20s or 30s. So it started in the 1870s.
They lost their standing.
What?
They lost their standing there because of 1929.
Mm-hmm.
They were known as the Great Depression until they got outdone.
Yeah.
76. Well, that's a close one too. Oh no, that's the same one.
We're the same one. Now we're on 80.
Garfield is a fucking cat. Wow. Look at that.
The popular vote?
The popular vote.
Yeah. And then Garfield died from an assassin's bullet in 1881. Replaced by Chester.
Chester Arthur.
Another cat name.
Yeah. Huh.
Extremely close popular vote. Tariffs.
Well, the greenbacks might have been the spoilers because they would have been drawing from the Democrats.
The greenback?
Yeah, it had to do with the silver certificates rather than gold-backed currencies, which supposedly would help the farmers and perhaps hurt the banks and issues like that. Who was that? William Jennings Bryan. Yeah, I think you might see Bryan running in the next election, but he, of course, third party. But they were populist, and so they would have drawn from the Democrat Party. Spoilers. Oh, that looks awful close on the map. Shit.
Now we got Blaine, Cleveland.
Grover Cleveland.
Now there's 20,000 difference in the popular vote.
Pretty damn close. Grover Cleveland.
Issues of the day: personal ethics of the candidate.
What? What's your bullshit?
Pretty.
So the Republicans got most of the North, but not New York.
Yeah, is that where it's flipping, starting to flip?
Yeah, a lot of immigrants. I don't know why that would be, but upstate New York, of course, very conservative, I guess, but I don't know. Oh, they went Democrat. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I can't figure it. But the Dems.
Now it's back red. 1888. Harrison.
So Cleveland was a one-term president and got voted out, probably for his personal ethics.
Yeah.
Didn't seem to hurt Trump any, did it?
No, I think that's part of his deal. It's part of his deal. He's just a common man, he's not perfect.
Yeah, but I don't think wouldn't think the women would be too flattered by a philanderer. How many women have 18 or something have come forward to accuse him of improprieties? I don't think rape is probably the correct term, but improprieties.
I don't know. I just knew about the older ladies, the cougars.
I'm gonna Google that because
I don't know about the young women.
how many women? How
He's just
many?
a man,
Hmm.
okay? That's just men these days. We can't
But they're saying that
we
personal
can't
ethics
we can't
used to be
expect
a big issue.
faithful to one woman
Here we go.
when there's so many pretty women out
Here
there.
we go. Donald Trump. It's 26. 26 women have come forward courageously
Well, you know,
to tell the truth.
who knows? They could be making that up. I'm gonna step forward.
Yeah. Well, you're making excuses. At least 20. At least 26 have
I need a couple million bucks.
Donald Trump. What?
I need a couple million bucks.
Well, okay, some of them, but
Touch me.
you know, is there no integrity?
Apparently not on either side.
Can I read this?
Yeah.
I know you're making light.
Keep going.
And from 2017 to 21, accused of rape, kissing, groping without consent, looking under women's skirts, and walking in on naked teenage pageant contestants. Oh, just walked into the dressing room. Trump has denied these allegations. Trump has a history of insulting and belittling women when speaking to the media. He has made lewd comments, disparaged women's physical appearance, and referred to them using derogatory epithets. In October 2016, 2 days before the second presidential debate with Hillary Clinton, a 2005 hot mic recording surfaced in which Trump was heard bragging about kissing and groping women without their consent. You've heard that one, right?
Yeah, what a weird thing to brag about.
Grab them by the pussy, he said.
Yeah, I know. I remember that.
Well, I'm just reading this. The incident, widespread media exposure led to Trump's first public apology. Well, that's because they got him on goddamn tape. He couldn't deny everything. That's his policy. Caused outrage across the political spectrum. Donald Trump has been accused of rape, you said that, including non-consensual kissing and groping by at least 25 women since the 70s.
Yeah.
In June 2019, writer E. Jean Carroll alleged in New York Magazine that Trump raped her. That's crossing the line. In a department store dressing room. Oh my goodness. He must have been on the soapers or something. That's crazy. Two friends of Carroll stated that Carroll had previously confided in them about the incident. Trump called the allegations fiction and denied ever meeting Carroll, despite a photo of them together.
Yeah, but I mean, how do you get raped in a dressing room, by the way? I mean,
yeah, you could call out, couldn't you?
Yeah. It's kind of weird to me right there. I mean, I'm not denying, whatever. Obviously, I want to believe women, but not all women are credible.
Well, that's true. I won't read this whole thing. I normally don't like this kind of gossip, but When you said the campaign was about personal ethics,
Yeah.
good
Well, I saw
Lord.
that. I saw a lot of that on the Candace Owens video you sent. I mean, there's a lot of comments about that. The fact that Candace Owens, she's really religious and all this stuff, and then she's supporting Trump. So some of the comments were mentioning some of his improprieties and how it could possibly back him.
Well, he had got the vast majority of the fundamentalist Christian vote, the family values people.
Yeah.
What are family values anyway, according to these politicians and pundits? The fuck is the family values? Yeah, I have to go to church to learn to respect my children, or what the fuck is it?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's a great slogan which doesn't seem to have much meaning.
Mm-hmm.
What election we got here? 1892.
Yeah, now we have the People's Party.
Oh, James Weaver. And
yeah, we welcome many new states. Welcome to our union. And let's see here. Yeah, there's a lot of shit. Okay, so now we have farming issues and Homestead steel strike.
Oh. So Grover Cleveland's made a comeback. We got elected.
Yeah.
So he was in office. I had the feeling he was in office when the Spanish-American War started, 1898.
No, you're thinking 1884. So 1884, and then Harrison won, and then he's back in 1892.
So he might have been. The Spanish War was 1898.
Yeah.
Well, maybe Cleveland wasn't in there then.
But then he's gone.
Okay. Well, William Jennings Bryan. I told you he's coming up next.
And McKinley. McKinley is killed.
We're being crucified on a cross of gold. The whole issue was silver certificates. Of course, yeah, I'd have to have an economist explain it, but that was a huge issue in the farmlands and in the South, I guess. But anyway, not real sure what the silver backing of the currency would mean, but it seemed would be inflationary. So inflation is bad for the banks. It's also bad for other people too. But I don't know. Spanish-American War. Scroll down a little bit.
That's all it says. And then McKinley is killed shortly after. 6 months. Well, 7 months after. And he's replaced by Theodore Roosevelt.
Oh yeah, Teddy Roosevelt was in charge of that war with Spain, I believe. No, because he actually was some kind of general. So he participated in that in Cuba and Puerto Rico, I think. And then that built his reputation, so he's qualified to be president.
Is Theodore Roosevelt the one that liked to go to Africa and kill all the tigers and stuff?
Yeah, he was a hunter. Yeah.
Yeah, like he loved like killing elephants.
Well, he did more for environmental than any other president.
Did he?
All of these national parks, Yellowstone and I forget all the names of them. He established a whole bunch of, he's a real naturalist, environmentalist.
Yeah.
Teddy
It said
Roosevelt.
he was a sickly child with debilitating asthma. Roosevelt overcame health problems through a strenuous lifestyle. It's interesting. He was homeschooled and began a lifelong naturalist avocation before attending Harvard.
Do they
His,
say anything about the national parks?
his first wife and mother died on the same night, devastating him psychologically. He recuperated by buying and operating a cattle ranch in the Dakotas. He was an assistant secretary of the Navy, and he helped plan the successful naval war against Spain. He resigned to help form and lead the Rough Riders, a unit that fought the Spanish army in Cuba to great publicity. Returning a war hero, Roosevelt was elected New York's governor in 1898. The New York State Party leadership disliked his ambitious agenda and convinced McKinley to choose him as his running mate in the 1900 presidential election.
Get rid of him.
The McKinley-Roosevelt ticket won the landslide victory. But then
McKinley was shot.
Yeah. So Roosevelt assumed the presidency in age 42, the youngest person to become U.S. president. As a leader of the progressive movement, he championed his square deal domestic policies, which called for fairness for all citizens, breaking bad trusts, regulating railroads, and pure food and drugs.
Yeah, antitrust legislation. He might have had some effect, but you're not going to stop monopolies. They work in various ways. But what do they say about his environmentalist agenda?
He's getting to it. Roosevelt prioritized conservation and established national parks, forests, and monuments to preserve U.S. natural resources. In foreign policy, he focused on Central America, beginning construction of the Panama Canal. Roosevelt expanded the Navy and sent the Great White Fleet on a world tour to project naval power. His successful efforts to end the Russo-Japanese War won him the 1906 Nobel Peace Prize, the first American to win the prize. He was elected again in 1904.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he wasn't our worst president. Just the environmental work, I think. But of course, he was an imperialist, but they all are.
Yeah. So he wins the next election. Well, pretty heartily. Here, north-south split, basically.
Yeah.
Parker, and then we have Eugene Debs running as a socialist.
There you go.
That's pretty
Now
good.
we're talking. What year was this?
What percentage is that? 1904.
It's about less than one, or maybe one. This is in 1904? Oh, well, he runs again in the next election and the next election after that.
It's more than one because there's only 12,000 votes, and he got 400,000.
Okay, so 12,600 or 12,600,000 and 4 million times 100 would be 4 million, or no?
Wait, what do I do on the calculator? 400,000
No, times 10 would be 4 million.
divided by
12 million. So it's 1/3 of that.
like
So I'm saying
3%.
Well, if you multiply 0.3 times that, you get yeah, you're on the money. Yep. Because 3 times 4 is 12. So it's about 3%. But he ran from prison in 16? What year are we on here?
We're 1904.
1904?
Mhm.
Well, he ran several times. Let's see the next one.
Okay. So we're building the Panama Canal, and we are wanting to focus on the gold standard here. Taft. No, they don't show him running here. Maybe this was this when he's in jail?
No, he was in jail in like 1915, 16. Whenever the U.S. got into the war, or maybe it was 18.
Okay.
So maybe he didn't run every time, but he's going to run again, I'll guarantee.
Now we have the bank.
And he got more than 1 million votes from prison, I believe. Maybe not.
The bank panic of 1907.
Maybe not. What? The bank panic. We have another bank panic. Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with those.
And Taft and who do we got here? Taft and
Two Williams. Two Williams.
Yeah, Debs probably wouldn't want to run against Bryan because Bryan was, not a socialist, but definitely a populist.
Okay. Well, yeah, he lost. Oh. What? Look at what the hell happened? It was all red. Now it's like not red at all. Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, so the Progressive Party. So Roosevelt ran on the Progressive Party, and not the Republican Party. William Taft.
Taft, didn't he won? He won the last one.
Wait a minute.
He won the last one. Wait, look, he won the last one.
What?
He won 1908 overwhelmingly, and then in the next 4 years he gets like nothing.
Well, it's that bank panic again,
Wilson takes over, and we got Theodore Roosevelt running as a progressive, and we have Eugene Debs running again, almost 1 million votes.
There you go. What year is this?
1908, 1912. Taft's 8 electoral votes are the fewest ever for an incumbent. I would say so.
That's what you call rejection.
You suck, buddy.
Incumbents are supposed to have an advantage, but you're fired. The American people say you're fired.
Yeah, for sure. So issues of the day, we have trusts, the Standard Oil case, 1911.
And monopoly, the Taft-Hartley, no, not Taft-Hartley, the anti-monopoly legislation.
And the 16th Amendment, federal income tax.
Oh, shit.
Woo!
That's not popular.
Who came up with that shit?
That's probably why his campaign went down the drain.
You think it was Taft? Yeah. It had to be Taft. Well, anyway, we got Woodrow Wilson.
Quit flipping so much. I don't, you give me a second to see what we're looking at before you
The
flip.
process. I'm still on 1912.
Okay. And they're the Progressive Party. Let me look at this. What? The Progressive Party did pretty goddamn well, you know, Pennsylvania, California, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and South Dakota. That's McGovern territory. Washington State. But, so what was the popular vote here?
I mean, yeah.
Not too close, but he still did pretty good. And Debs did very well.
Yeah, there's so few votes. Is this when women couldn't vote yet?
I think it was 1924 or I think it was 1924 that they got the vote, or 28.
Still, that's why it's
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's only half the
low.
population. Yeah.
Anyway.
In the South, they had literacy requirements, and I don't know about property requirements, but they definitely had literacy tests.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were a former slave and
Right.
you couldn't read good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next election?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, Wilson went on a fucking landslide, didn't he?
And now Wilson.
Oh, it's not so landslidey there, is it?
Yeah.
Damn.
Hughes. And we have another one. Alan Benson is a socialist running.
I don't know much about him or anything about him, but.
Oh, me neither.
So Woodrow Wilson. So what year is this?
This is 1916. So issue of the day, World War I.
So he campaigned in this time as keeping the United States neutral. And after he got in there, he quickly flipped the script. Yeah, so that's the only way he was able to squeak out a victory here. Because, you know, out west, they're known for isolationism, so-called, or don't want to get involved in or in the South. They don't want to get in foreign wars. And up there in the Northeast, they're a little bit more internationalist and everything. I mean, those terms are, you know, that's the terms they use. Anyway, more anti-war sentiment. And Wilson won the anti-war vote. Flipped the script, and you know, before he could blink an eye. Okay. What do we got here?
Harding. Harding winning resoundingly, and Debs ran again. I mean, compared to our third party now, look at that. Almost 1 million.
He's in prison at this time. What is this, 1920?
Yeah.
He's in prison. He's running from prison.
Yeah.
And yeah, close to 1 million, but I think I said 1 million. But Harding was a rock-ribbed Republican, like the next guy, Coolidge. And the next guy was Hoover. And well, Hoover wasn't quite so rock-ribbed Republican, but Harding was. And he won everything but the South. You see how Democrat the South is?
Yeah, for sure. And it says the 19th Amendment is ratified. and the women are allowed to vote. 1920. So I don't know if they were allowed to vote here. Wait. We should be able to tell. I don't know. No, I guess not yet.
The totals have come up a little bit, but that's just population growth, I guess.
I mean, kind of a lot. 26,000 there. And we have 17,000. I guess we should be able to tell 1924. See, I think they were allowed to vote there because look, now we have.
Oh yeah, look at Robert La Follette. You know, that's the progressive farmer. What do they call it?
You got Wisconsin.
Labor Party or the Progressive Party. I think they have two names. But Robert La Follette, that's McGovern's tradition up there in Minnesota and in the Dakotas.
Yeah.
He got his own state.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, just making the point that third parties from now on, Debs was almost 1 million votes, but you know, what did La Follette get? About 1 million or something, million. How many did La Follette get?
Almost 5 million.
Shit, better than I thought.
Damn.
It only took one state though.
Yeah.
Calvin Coolidge. He said the business of America is business, and he was all business.
Is that the Dawes? The Dawes ran. Was his advice?
Yep.
So we got again corruption issues of the day. Good economy. The Teapot Dome scandal.
Oh, down in Texas, something to do with oil monopolies, corruption. I think they bought the government down there and got the drilling rights illegally, and I don't know.
Well, it involved Warren G. Harding. It centered around the Interior Secretary Bacon Fall, who had leased Navy petroleum reserves at Teapot Dome in Wyoming, as well as locations in California, to private oil companies at low rates without competitive bidding.
Wyoming and California?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
Texas. He was convicted of bribes from the oil companies. Fall became the first presidential cabinet member to go to prison, but no one is was convicted of paying the bribes. Okay.
What about Harding? I'm sure he didn't go to jail.
No, I don't think so. Before the Watergate scandal, Teapot Dome was regarded as the greatest and most sensational scandal in the history of American politics. Yeah. It permanently damaged the reputation of the Harding
scandal. I got to read up more on that. I see what in the goddamn thing. It's hanky panky. Like I told you, we did worse than that in Ohio University.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrible.
So where are we at? 24, and Coolidge is in there now, and Dawes.
And now we have Hoover winning a landslide here. Yeah, George Galloway needs to be educated. There's been so many.
Yeah.
Landslides. I mean,
what's
her name? What's her face? Harris got like 200 electoral votes or something. Anyway.
Yeah, the popular vote was, like 6 million. I don't know, 4 million. So Herbert Hoover.
Yeah, look at the popular vote now. I mean, yeah, there's a lot more voters. Sure.
Alfred E. Smith, now he can't win because he's Catholic. And
what do you mean?
The country was not ready for Catholic. That
Was
was so remarkable about Kennedy.
Yeah, right.
He said a Catholic can't win a national election. This is America. You might win a few votes in New York or immigrant communities in New Jersey, but to take the whole country. So they were talking about what? The Pope's going to be in charge of our goddamn country now.
Oh man. Look at that.
Yeah, 32 Roosevelt.
The whole thing just flips.
Well, something happened in that period. The Great Depression changed everything, changed the narrative. You see,
Yeah.
before that, they're triumphantly talking about the American system and how we're the most popular. The greatest country in the world, and economy is the strongest of any other country, and everything, and upward and onward. And then suddenly you have the complete collapse. 20% plus, actually 25, I believe, at the height of the Depression. That's a collapse. You see, so that changes the whole narrative. You're no longer, we're the greatest thing that's ever happened in this world, to we're flat on our back. You see, so all the narrative and the politics has to change in this circumstances.
And then Roosevelt instituted all the what do you call it?
New Deal?
Yeah. The Works
Project Administration?
Yeah.
The CCC, the Conservation Corps, Civilian Conservation Corps. These were highly successful, as I pointed out. Just look at what they accomplished. Just look.
Yeah.
20,000 bridges, 20,000 schools, millions of miles of highway, on and on and on. Beautiful buildings are still standing in DC and all around the country. National parks they built. These were unemployed people. So the right to a job is the only reform worth talking about. And people who are talking about something less than that, like a tax credit for whatever, bullshit, all bullshit. You want to make something out of the United States of America or any other capitalist country, the first step is a guaranteed employment for all at decent wage. Period. Not raising the minimum. We're going to raise the minimum wage. Fuck that shit. That's bullshit. The problem is 10 or more million, 20 million people unemployed. You can't call yourself a fucking society. You can't use the term our society, because that's one thing you don't have. Or our standard of living. That's another thing you don't have. Okay? You just don't have a standard of living. So what's the sense in talking about it? And the social scientists and commentators that just fill up reams and reams of paper about our high standard of living in our society. You don't have any such thing to be talking about. So what the fuck are you talking about? Anyway, I'm done. It's the weave. It's the weave. You know the weave?
No. What?
That Trump uses it. He says, they accuse me of going off topic. And he said, it's not going off topic. I always land right on the topic that was asked. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, you have to weave in different, sometimes different aspects, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, 36.
What the topic was, though. What were we talking about? Roosevelt.
Just
New
Roosevelt,
Deal.
yeah, the New Deal.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, look at this landslide. Hey, send this one over to
yeah, now this is a
Gerald.
landslide.
What the fuck are you talking about? You must be colorblind. Alfred Landon. Well, he actually got maybe 35% of the vote, something like that. I don't know.
Damn. Yeah, look at
Took two states.
It's a little pathetic. All right, so we're getting into World War II here.
How about Alaska? Who took Alaska? Alaska's still not a state. You're right.
Wait a second, Roosevelt again? What? What?
What?
Roosevelt again?
Yes, that's the controversy.
For the third time?
I was telling you about that earlier. The only way that he felt to appease those constitutionalists who were threatening to prevent him from running a third term, which goes against the Constitution, he agreed to put Truman on the ticket. And that turned out to be a horrible, horrible decision. There's never been a more horrible decision. This nuclear maniac who started the Cold War and everything else, the purge of the labor movement of the leftists, and he was a member of the Ku Klux Klan from Missouri. A card-carrying member of the Ku Klux Klan. He had a fucking hood, an assortment of hoods in his closet.
Nice.
Then they tried to whitewash him just a little bit when he got on the ticket there. And of course, he was, pro-New Deal because they had a whole bunch of projects down in Missouri, Arkansas, and around the water. What was it? The big water project there along the Mississippi, and all that was great. But he was, not a good man, and he said that dropping those bombs on Japan was America's greatest hour. I'm quoting.
Yeah.
So yeah, he ran a third term, which was
what?
Not
fourth term? He ran 4 terms.
No, in 48.
32,
32, 36, and 44. Wait a minute.
That's 4 terms.
No, wait a minute. Can you count? 32. That's 1. 36. Wait a minute. Yeah, he served 3 terms and ran for his 4th. He won his 4th term. You're right. I told you I didn't know American history.
And then that's when he died in 45, and he was replaced by Truman. Roosevelt was the first and only president elected for a 4th consecutive term.
God damn. That's right. Okay. I stand corrected. 44, he lost a little bit of momentum, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, a little bit. A lot from 36, he won the most, and then, yeah, lost some, and then lost
Well, he lost
some more there.
the West there, and Indiana and Ohio and Wisconsin and Iowa. He lost all of that. So I wonder why. Probably because they felt it was illegitimate to run. It is like a dynasty.
I mean, the popular vote's pretty close. I mean,
yeah. Thomas Dewey, the governor of New York, was somewhat popular, and then he ran the next time, the very, very crucial election in 48, the one we were talking about earlier. Flip to the next one. Oh, here's 48. Okay, so Truman, Dewey, and let's not forget Wallace. Henry Wallace. Yeah, we already looked at this one. Yeah. So Truman won. Yeah, well, he was basking in the glory of his A bombs, and that's our man. Hell yes, he's not pussyfooting. No, he's not going to pussyfoot with those Soviets. That was what it was about. The Japanese war was over. They were waving all kind of white flags. And since we didn't have direct diplomatic relations with Tokyo, they were sending the message through the Soviets and I think some other parties, but definitely the Soviets, to contact the Washington. We're ready to quit. He said the only condition that we would like to have is we would like to preserve our emperor. And other than that, it's unconditional surrender. They sent various messages to that effect in the last months of the war. They were totally devastated. They had firebombed all the cities in Japan, destroyed everything. There was no hope, absolutely no hope, and you didn't have to be any kind of military genius to figure that out. You never should have taken the bait of Pearl Harbor, but that's another story. Where are we here? 48. Okay, so Strom Thurmond got a few states. Wallace, again, you can't run third party shit.
What do you mean they took the bait of Pearl Harbor?
Well, they had an 8-point plan that was drawn up in the Navy Department, and to force Japan to fire the first shot, as various politicians had said. And so it included, they were industrializing, and so they needed oil from the Southeast Asia, from Indonesia, and so on. They blockaded that. They weren't even able to get scrap iron. They basically have no iron, apparently. They were a lot of resource dependency on places like Manchuria and places like Southeast Asia. And then, of course, they manipulated, I think they sequestered, kind of like they did to Russia, their funds that were in London banks and New York banks and things like that. They did everything humanly possible to provoke the Japanese. And they felt that they were in a box, and that it was either give up their designs to develop or capitulate. Anyway, for the exact attack, they explained it fairly well in that video I sent with what's her name? And the ex-CIA man. And the black girl you just mentioned.
Yeah, he just said it was they knew about the attack coming and they decided not to do anything about it.
Oh man, they followed them. They dismantled the radar in Honolulu. They went to that extreme because it takes I don't know 5 or 6 days to come from Japan to the islands. They watched them every step of the way, but they refused to pass that information. They went to the extreme of dismantling Stinnett. If you want to read the book, the best history on that is by Stinnett, and it's called Days of Infamy. Days of Infamy by Stinnett. And he gives you chapter and verse on that. Even the admiral and the general that were in charge of our military operations were kept in the dark. Huh? This is treason.
Yeah.
So the surprise attack. But the Admiralty that was in the know back in Washington, they took the precaution of moving all of our best ships, our real ships, out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
So that ships that were expendable, I should say, were left there for the photo op.
Yeah, I just thought you said Japan was like pretty much surrendering.
Well,
so why would they do that?
We're back to the beginning of the war now.
Oh, okay.
What are we? We're talking 1940.
Yeah.
When
so why would they want to get
41, I believe it was.
Why would they want to get the U.S. involved?
The U.S. had a sort of like their policy in Europe now, where they're expanding NATO every step of the way. They're using sanctions. They're using embargoes. They're trying to disrupt the Japanese economy, and so on and so forth. It's an Stinnett Days of Infamy, I believe it's called, and you can probably get it free online because it's an older book. And but he explains it very well with chapter and verse and personalities that are involved and so on and so forth. So they gave them no real opportunity to, you see, with the intensified competition, inter-imperialist rivalries, you're either winning or losing. There's no kind of in between. That's why we have world wars, because all states want to win. That's what I meant about this upsurge of protectionism. That's just prelude to the shooting phase, which, as history as any judge, has to come. Or, you see, as Lenin explained in Imperialism, way back in 1918, the world has been divided up into spheres of influence, and capitalism needs to expand. American historian William Appleton Williams explained it as the expansionist imperative. In other words, you're expanding or you're dying. You're going into the next depression. You're going down. So the world's been divided up. Markets have been divided up. Sources of resources have been divided up. We have staked out, of course, not only this hemisphere, but many other parts of the world. It's ours. Somebody else is encroaching. You have a conflict. You have a contradiction. You have a clash. They provoked they were, the declassified documents that Stinnett provides shows the 8-point plan to provoke Japan to take the first shot so that they could give this stupid speech about days of infamy and all this crap. But no, I mean, in hindsight, you can say it was a mistake. I mean, the country was just obliterated. They didn't manage to rebuild after the war, but the same old class. What most people don't understand is the strength of the communist and socialist movement in Japan at that time. The just pacifist and anti-war sentiment in Japan. They had to resort to a severe repression against the progressives in Japan in order to continue their imperial. And they were imperialists. They invaded, Korea and Manchuria and Indonesia and everything else. But they, so it was just inter-imperialist rivalry, but they're playing with the short end of the stick. You can't, they should have known perhaps, made some kind of accommodation or, but they would have had to change their capitalist system because capitalism needs to expand. Capitalism needs imperialism. That's why colonialism happened. And then neo-colonialism is happening. And so it's winners and losers, it's a jungle.
Yeah. So do we want to see what happens next here?
Yeah, let's bring it all the way up to the closest election in American history. '52. Well, we've already seen that. That's Eisenhower, war hero.
Yeah, big.
He had some good sentiments, but they overthrew the government in Iran. They overthrew the government.
We're concerned with communism.
But he was not a war hawk against the Soviet Union, who they had been allied with. He was against the nuclear attack. He said, I believe at the time the decision was being made, but certainly afterward, he said that there's absolutely no reason to have used the atomic bomb. They did it to showcase the bomb, not only the technology of the bomb. These people in the Manhattan Project, Klaus Fuchs and all, of course, Einstein, all of them, they said, let's bomb a atoll that uninhabited someplace out in the Pacific and show the world what this weapon can do. Completely evaporate a fair-sized atoll. What's wrong with that? No way. No fucking way. Secretary of State Burns and Stimson and Truman and all of them, they completely overrode that.
Sorry, go ahead.
And insisted that they drop them on ancient, historical Japanese cities. And they asked Stimson for the Defense Department, help us to select the proper target. I said, we can drop a couple of bombs on them. He said, he selected the two cities, Well, where in these cities said a concentration of working class housing. So the decision to drop the bomb had a class aspect. Why? Because after they've already preparing for the post-war, where they rehabilitated all of the Haibatsu and ironically, if you like, they insisted on putting the emperor back, which they had said was a sticking point before. Insisted on putting the emperor back, but not just the emperor, the whole ruling class of Japan, all the industrialists, all the old military people, all the bureaucrats, insisted that they brought them back into political life, founded the conservative Democrat Party, whatever it's called, which was in power in perpetuity after, because they had the support of the United States. So it was a great crime, but they were arguing that we've already destroyed every standing building in all of Japan and with fire bombs, because they had wooden construction materials, and they're able to completely burn to ash 40 or 50 or 60 of the biggest cities in Japan. And since Hiroshima and Nagasaki were relatively, hadn't been firebombed, they had certainly been bombed, and they had no military facilities in either of those places. So they were sort of overlooked. He said, well, here we have the perfect place to demonstrate this weapon. And Oppenheimer, I don't know if you've seen the movie, it was kind of half-assed. Galloway says great, I think it was half-assed. But he had his remorse afterwards, and many of them did. It was not necessary. And I'm forgetting where we got started with Pearl Harbor. It's the weed. It's the weed.
Yeah. What do we have here? Yeah, then we have Eisenhower.
Oh, yeah, that's where we were. He did make strong statements after the war that registered his horror at the use of the bomb after it was not necessary. Secretary of Defense McNamara under Johnson, was no pussy, but he said the same thing. In fact, he said that it was not necessary to destroy 50 or 60 of the cities in Japan either, and he was involved in the Air Force planning, but he later had terrible regret. So yeah, it's great when you're bombing hell out of people, but when that beating heart under your bed, you begin to hear at night.
Under the floorboards.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then Eisenhower wins again in 56.
Yeah.
52, 56.
He ran against Stevenson. He ran against Stevenson both times, you say?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about Stevenson. Was quite a liberal. He was from Illinois, strong base. He didn't even carry Illinois. Wow. Well, that shows you something. Eisenhower, his policy was the middle way, by which he meant between Democrat and Republican. In other words, he wasn't going to go with the Calvin Coolidge Warren G. Harding, everything for business. He wasn't going to get rid of the graduated income tax that had come about in the Roosevelt years and that sort of thing. So he was considered a moderate, middle of the roader. Only happenstance was he a Republican. You know, he was a war hero, and I don't think he had a party before that. But they drafted him. You know.
Okay, now we have Kennedy.
Yeah. Kennedy, what was the I thought the
Close.
vote, no, the vote was very close, but the electoral vote was not that close. Now you got Texas and Illinois, so that does it. Texas was probably delivered by Johnson, you know, a senator from Texas, who was the vice president. And so, you know, you got a balanced ticket of a somewhat conservative Democrat in the Southeast or Southwest, and guy from New York.
And
Or
then
was he from New York?
Then he was killed in Texas.
He's from Massachusetts, I'm sorry. Pardon me?
Then Kennedy was killed in Texas.
Yeah, well, that's another long story. Yeah. So there, you know, there is a connection there. LBJ controlled that place pretty well.
And it says Alaska and Hawaii become states. Just now, 1960.
Yeah. I didn't know it was that late. I guess I sort of vaguely remember that. That was a big deal.
And then we have the space race.
Yeah, that's another fake deal. No, it's a fake deal.
I know.
It's like Building 7. You look at the photographs that they say were taken on the moon. Shadows going all crisscross. There's only one source of light on the moon.
This is when we have the flip here.
But they say, no, there was another source. It was a reflection off of the earth, for God's sakes. What do we got? Oh.
This is the flip.
Yeah. That's the Goldwater. It's sort of the flip side of the McGovern thing, where
all the South turns red now.
you know, he was considered a radical Republican. Reagan was for him, but most of the, you know, really half the Republican Party was not Goldwater. He was considered a just too conservative, too radical with his free market, and also considered a warmonger, and would have escalated. This was what people were led to believe would escalate, perhaps use nuclear weapons in Vietnam. And by this time, you know, the public was not into that. But of course, Johnson was prosecuting the war, so that was a little bit of a toss-up. But they didn't trust Goldwater. Goldwater was from the Arizona John Birch Society. You know, I mean, just radical. And yeah, every other word was freedom and liberty and freedom, liberty and freedom and liberty. But you know, people said he wasn't popular, but he did carry the South. But LBJ was a piece of work, you know. But look at I'd rather have Goldwater, probably. I don't know.
And then we have 68, which we talked about. Then
Yeah. So
George
in
Wallace.
68, before that, they put heavy pressure on Johnson not to run. But the pressure was being put on by the anti-war forces. That's McCarthy, McGovern, Wayne Morse from Washington State, Republican from Connecticut, quite a few, progressive Republicans from the Northeast. And so it looked to Johnson. But the irony is that then, instead of turning to an anti-war candidate, they turned to Hubert Humphrey, who was Johnson's vice president, who had defended the war every step of the way. And so he lost to Nixon. Nixon didn't say much about the Vietnam War, and the least he could possibly get away with. Humphrey had to call for, negotiations, but he was tarnished by his association with Johnson. So they shit canned LBJ, but they went from the frying pan into the fire, sort of like Biden and what's her name? The same policies, and then didn't want to break with those policies in the election campaign. So went down the drain. Humphrey he had a lot of pretensions about being a progressive. He was at one time with the Farmer Labor Party up there in Minnesota, and people like La Follette he probably supported, and probably I'm not sure, but probably Henry Wallace back in the days. He was a very much supposedly pro civil rights, and made a big deal out of that at the Democrat convention because he refused to seat a number of delegations from the South because they still had restrictions on blacks voting, and that violated the Civil Rights Act, which had already been passed, but they were refusing to abide by it. And in Little Rock, they were barring black students from schools and throughout the South. So he took a very principled stand on the question of racism and desegregation, but he was ruined by his association with the Vietnam War, and rightly so. But you see, Nixon was even worse. So similar to what we have here, really, in many ways, because Trump is probably worse, in my opinion. More likely to invade Iran, support the invasion of Iran, things like that. So we'll see. Anyway, getting back to
we will see.
George Wallace did awfully well, didn't he?
Yeah.
Wow, almost 10.
I mean,
He was a segregation. Huh?
Yeah, can you imagine nowadays?
His segregation. But also a populist, so he lambasted the Eastern-centered banks and how they are, pillaging the small man and so on and so forth. And he claimed not to be a racist, you see, but it was a question of states' rights. So he was a racist, but he tried to soften that for public consumption by saying that it's really a question of states' rights, and no matter what the issue might be, economic or social or political, the states hold the last word on these matters, and And, you know, that's the way he went about it. But
Okay, so 72, we've discussed this bloodbath.
holy shit. Oh, yeah.
Poor George Govern.
Get, get that on my face.
Been
That's a disgrace. That's a disgrace.
the worst election night
The best candidate that's ever run for president of the United States on a major party, definitely the best of all of history. I mentioned Henry Wallace and I mentioned Stein and so on, but he had the Democrat, I should say we, captured the Democrat nomination. Oh, incidentally, to start the downfall, first of all, they made a big scandal about his pick for a vice president was a senator from Missouri by the name of I don't know, I'll tell you the name, but Eagleton, Senator Eagleton, young, progressive senator. You know what these fucking assholes did? They dug around in his ancient past and found out that he had once sought psychological counseling. Huh?
Yeah.
Doesn't sound like much, does it?
Right.
You better believe that was something. He's gonna have if something happens to the president, he's gonna have his finger on the button, and he's a psycho. Yeah, this is the quality of rhetoric. Anyway, they started a international. He didn't vet he didn't vet the guy before the guy is a nutcase. Well, I think he had also been a recovering alcoholic, as I recall, but he had quit that, and he had gotten psychological counseling. They made a huge deal. I mean, so big that to McGovern's embarrassment, or at least according to his staff, Frank Mankiewicz and those guys, he had to back off. So he backed off, which looked bad. He didn't support the guy. So McGovern's getting, blasted from every direction. Oh, you got to cut bait with this guy. We didn't really know him. We didn't know his background, and all a bunch of stupid bullshit. But so he cut Eagleton. I don't know how he explained it. I don't remember. Embarrassing to have to say that you're cutting this young, energetic, progressive senator because he once had an alcohol issue. Hell, fuck. Who hasn't? Anyway, so then to double down on stupidity, and I kind of blame his staff. First, he asks Edward Kennedy. Edward Kennedy, he was, the brother of John F. Kennedy and the father of Robert Kennedy Jr. that we have today. No. The uncle of Robert Kennedy that we have today. And so anyway, Kennedy turns him down. So then it looks bad and double bad because everybody's saying, and I tell you the scuttlebutt, and in the news and the press and the commentators and 60 Minutes and it's quite obvious that he wanted Ed Kennedy in order to take advantage of the Kennedy name, which makes him look opportunistic. And then to make things even worse, Edward Kennedy then declines. He probably declined because of Chappaquiddick, which you may have heard that name. It's not quite as common as, the Watergate, but it's fairly well commonplace in that time and even today. That's where Kennedy had apparently a drinking problem, but he drove off a bridge up there in Hyannisport, and they after a party, and what made it so bad, he had a young lady who was not married to in his car, and she drowned. Oh my gracious. So for Chappaquiddick, Ed Kennedy kind of weathered that personally, as long as he stayed in New York and his territory. He was so popular that they couldn't shit can him over that incident, whether rightly or wrongly. Anyway, but he turned down McGovern. Okay. So now you've got a real bad look. So now what does he do? Frank Mankiewicz and these Zionist fuckers that weaseled into his top level Democrat Party figures that became, most of his staff. He had a few loyal people, but mostly these politicos. They suggested Sergeant Shriver. You don't know Sergeant Shriver, and nobody else does either. But he was the cousin or cousin by marriage or brother-in-law by marriage, one of those. Sergeant Shriver, who then was appointed by Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, to head the Peace Corps, which was, not really that popular. It was tolerated. Most people thought, that's a pretty good idea, but it's not that important, They're going to do some projects. That's fine. So that's Sergeant Shriver's only claim to any kind of political or administrative experience whatsoever, head of the Peace Corps for a few years. He gets, then of course they say, of course they're just trying to get, desperate to get the Kennedy name into the picture, which is probably right. And it's a bad look. Anyway, it went downhill from there. At the convention, they hemmed and hawed and so forth, so that they were trying to stall him from getting he had the votes. He won enough primaries, but they were trying to wheel and deal in smoke-filled room and get a compromise candidate between Humphrey and McGovern, and Humphrey still had his base and so on. So here's what made it so bad. They didn't actually declare the winner until midnight of convention day. So when he gets ready to give his victory speech with his wife and everybody around, it's after midnight. What made it so bad, the ultra left. I mentioned the Progressive Labor Party. They were part of it. The SDS, certain wings of the SDS, and certain other Maoists, and that ilk had this huge noisy and riotous protest in the lobby of where he's trying to give his fucking speech about, he's a reformist. He, the guy was absolutely sincere. You should watch a few of his speeches. But anyway, so the ultra left got into the whether they were all, but some people I know were bragging about it. Oh yeah, we made things real hot for this Democrat sellout before he even had a chance to accept his nomination. They were this riotous, and probably some of them were provocateurs, no doubt, but some of them were just these starry-eyed Maoist types. And they were just creating havoc. Well, it was another bad look. So they say, well, this is what's going to happen to the country. It's going to be riot and chaos if we elect this man. And he's refusing even to denounce them. He says basically they're in agreement about the Vietnam War, but still they're rioting and loud talking, and they got their bull horns inside the building and everything, and making everything a complete mess. So the ultra left, they played their little insignificant role, but they really made things bad. And then the press trying to call him a communist and saying that it's impractical, of course, to immediate withdrawal. We can't leave our allies in that manner. That's reckless and irresponsible. And all the media ganged up on him. But as I mentioned before, they laid off him as long as, really, for the most part, he even got some good press on the way to getting the Democrat nomination. Then they sprung the trap, the various traps. And I just saw it play. I just immediately flipped on a dime. The media just... the most outrageous and absurd accusations, starting with this vice president selection and on down from there. The riot in the hotel, and then ridiculous smears, and so he had no chance. But definitely the best presidential candidate ever in American history. No question. Look into him.
Yeah, I will. So how about we pick this up tomorrow for the next 50 years?
Weave. Been doing the weave.
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's just getting late here. But tomorrow we can do part 2 and start fresh.
All right. Yeah, let's do this more often. Wow. You're probably the only person I have to talk to in this world. I don't mean to put pressure on you, but I can't talk to my wife, as I told you. And Dorothy, I hardly ever see her. I basically have no fruitful conversation with anybody.
Yeah.
And nobody responds to my emails.
Same.
So I don't know. I have no idea. They're keeping their own counsel, and go ahead and keep it, I guess. But I enjoy our conversation. You're extremely smart, and you care, which is the most important thing. And I don't say that. We can't say that about too many people. But I enjoy our conversation. You let me kind of monopolize, as I want to do, but anyway.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
We'll pick it up tomorrow.
Good. I'll wait for your email.
Okay.
Bye.